Mandela in full effect. Some think that the Mandela effect is proof of collapsing timelines. Oscar Mayer isn't spelled that way. In actuality, the famous brand of hot dogs and lunch meats is Oscar Mayer, but people have grown frustrated because they remember it as Meyer, with an E. A lot of people recall the jingle from the commercials and insist the lyrics were My Bologna has a first name, it's Oscar/My Bologna has a second name, it's Mayer. Still, somehow, it's actually Mayer, though many people think that's the real Bologna here. It's Sex and the City, but many people insist they remember it being in the at some point. Some people have even posted pictures of old memorabilia they have that supports their false memory. Many of those familiar with the song remember the final lyrics being No time for losers, 'cause we are the champions of the world. Guess what? There is no of the world. The song just ends, and it's driving people crazy because they feel 100% sure that they've heard otherwise in the past. People remember there being a black mark on Pikachu's tail, but if you take a look at Pikachu now, you'll see nothing there. How so many people can remember an aspect of this character's appearance that doesn't actually exist, the world may never know. Curious George never had a tail. A lot of people even claim to remember seeing him use his tail to swing from the trees. If you look up pictures of Curious George right now, you'll see that he doesn't have a tail, meaning either your memory made the whole thing up or you've, drifted into a parallel universe. There are a lot of people who insist they remember the popular fast food chicken restaurant being known as Chick-fil-A, and there are even some who think it was Cheek-fil-A. However, neither of those are correct, because the company has allegedly, supposedly, reputedly always been Chick-fil-A. Darth Vader doesn't say, Luke, I am your father. Luke, I am your father is one of the most famous phrases from film, but many are discovering that it's not what Darth Vader said. He actually says, No, I am your father. So, is this just a misremembered movie line or did some otherworldly shenanigans take place? This isn't the only Star Wars-related Mandela effect instance. C-3PO isn't all gold. Many Star Wars fanatics recall C-3PO being completely gold and were greatly thrown off upon discovering that he's supposedly had a silver leg the entire time. A lot of memorabilia doesn't even feature the silver leg. Needless to say, it was a surprise to fans who have seen the film so many times, yet never noticed the distinct feature on a popular character. During the Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood intro, he'd sing a little jingle that many people remember beginning with the line, It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. That's not what it was, though instead, he clearly states, It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, which just doesn't sound right to those who feel like they know the correct wording without a shadow of a doubt. A lot of folks passionately insist that the Mona Lisa has changed, because they remember her having a straight face, but now they feel it seems as if she's got a smirk. What does she know? Some people seem to remember there being a dash in KitKat, making it KitKat, but there isn't one, and that frustrates them because they're sure that once upon a time, there was one. People remember a Sinbad genie movie from the 90s, but there isn't one. Many claim to recall a genie movie from the 90s that starred Sinbad, the only problem is, there never was one. Those same people insist they aren't confusing it with the 1996 flick Kazam, which starred Shaq as a genie. They don't know the title, or what happened to the movie's existence, but they're all very certain that once upon a time, it was a thing. Life isn't like a box of chocolates. It seems that the majority of people confidently remember Forrest Gump stating that his mama always said, life is like a box of chocolates. Well, it turns out that he actually said, life was like a box of chocolates, despite what you maybe felt you distinctly remembered. Hannibal Lecter never said hello, Clarice. If you've seen The Silence of the Lambs, you know the most famous line is hello, Clarice. The only problem is, that never happened, and when Clarice first meets Hannibal Lecter, he simply says, "Good morning." That's it. How is a film's most well-known line non-existent? Nobody knows, and it's eating away at people. Interview with the Vampire isn't called Interview with a Vampire. It's actually Interview with the Vampire, despite the fact that entering Interview with into Google shows Interview with a Vampire as the top search, because most people remember that being the title. The Queen in Snow White never said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall." While the famous Snow White quote you've probably heard others say and repeated yourself is "Mirror, mirror on the wall," it turns out the correct line is "Magic mirror on the wall." Some people also remember the second part of that quote being "Who is the fairest of them all," but apparently it's "Who is the fairest one of all." Jiffy peanut butter doesn't exist. It's called Jif, even though people remember the popular brand of peanut butter being called Jiffy and having a campaign that told mothers they could fix their kids a snack in a jiffy. Jiffy has certainly been embedded in the minds of many, and it was even spotted in American Dad, during an episode in which the character is uncovering a conspiracy. Fruit Loops is actually spelled Fruit Loops. Some say it was originally Fruit Loops and then changed to Fruit Loops, while others believe it went from Fruit Loops to Fruit Loops. Many people claim this change happened during their childhood, while others say they just noticed it in recent months. Whatever you believe, if you Google the cereal or find a box in real life, you'll see Fruit Loops printed across the front. Unless, of course, you're reading this from some other dimension. Something to think about. The Battle of Bunker Hill. If you visit Boston's historic sites, you may find yourself standing on Breed's Hill reading a sign that says "Site of the Battle of Bunker Hill." How did the location of such an iconic battle, one that supposedly elicited the famous quote, "Don't fire till you see the whites of their eyes," get bungled? Before the battle, the Colonials did receive orders to fortify Bunker Hill. However, under the command of Colonel Prescott, the men decided to bypass the 34-meter mount for Breed's Hill, which was shorter and closer to the water. While it's not entirely clear why the rebels made this maneuver, it's believed the troops wanted a closer vantage point from which to fire their less than accurate cannons. This may not have been the best move, since it resulted in face-to-face combat. In just 2 hours of fighting, it became the bloodiest battle of the Revolutionary War. Besides Prescott making a last-minute change of location, an inaccurate British map that reversed the names of the hills added further confusion about the battle's location. As if that wasn't enough misinformation, the whites of their eyes quote isn't exactly true either. The line had been said, in various forms, years before the battle, yet no evidence suggests any general said it in the battle itself. The Big Bang. Astronomer Fred Hoyle named the Big Bang, yet he ironically totally opposed the theory. He simply used those words in a mocking sort of way. He referred to the theory as a hot Big Bang during a radio program in which he argued against it. The real inventor of the idea was Georges Lemaitre, who called it the primeval atom, a much more fitting description. The reason Big Bang is such a misnomer is it doesn't describe the true theory at all. It gives the wrong impression of a giant, noisy explosion creating the universe and everything in it. The theory really states that all matter once exited at a single point. After an initial burst of expansion, it has gradually extended outward and continues to expand today. The initial burst wasn't as enormous as we might imagine. Matter only went from subatomic size to golf ball size, and while that's certainly impressive, it hardly matches the images we often see of a giant blast rocking all of space. There was also no loud, ear-busting bang. If humans could somehow go back and witness the event, we wouldn't hear anything at all, as the frequencies emitted from the expansion were too low to be audible to our ears. To the uninitiated, the term God particle seems to describe a single subatomic entity that explains the origins of the universe and answers all our existential questions. Its real purpose isn't quite as exciting, at least to the average person. The God particle, or its field, gives mass to other particles. For scientists, the discovery of this particle was monumental because it validated the standard model of physics, which meant we didn't have to check all existing formulas. The real name of the particle is the Higgs boson, and it was only branded with the godly moniker as a marketing scheme. Physicist Leon Lederman published a book on the subject, and even though he wanted to title it The Goddamn Particle, because nobody could find it, his editor convinced him that he would sell more copies if he referred to it as the more mysterious God particle. And much to the chagrin of scientists and clergymen everywhere, the name stuck. Or did it? The phrase global warming makes climate change sound not so bad. It almost sounds pleasant, like it'd be a great way to get more time at the beach or grow some prized tomatoes, but global warming doesn't entirely describe what's going on. Although it's not fully a misnomer, the planet is indeed getting warmer. The term tends to give people a wrong impression of what's happening. Global warming refers to the average surface temperature of the entire planet. It doesn't mean temperatures will go up everywhere and all at the same time. In fact, some places may get colder. For example, if melting sea ice shuts down large ocean currents in the Atlantic, a strong possibility then some places, such as North America and Western Europe, could experience a massive deep freeze. Climate change will also create areas of especially dry or wet conditions, mega hurricanes, Arctic blasts, and other extreme weather. Clearly it involves much more than the planet getting a couple degrees warmer. Who would want to make it sound nice? Stay paranoid, my friends. It's OSCAR/My Bologna has a second name, it's MAYER. Still, somehow, it's actually Mayer, though many people think that's the real Bologna here. It's Sex and the City, but many people insist they remember it. Mandela in full effect. Some think that the Mandela effect is proof of collapsing timelines. Oscar Mayer isn't spelled that way. In it being in the at some point. Some people have even posted pictures of old memorabilia they have that supports their false memory. Many of those familiar with the song remember the final lyrics being "No time for losers, 'cause we are the champions of the world." In actuality, the famous brand of hot dogs and lunch meats is Oscar Mayer, but people have grown frustrated because they remember it as Meyer, with an E. A lot of people recall the jingle from the commercials and insist the lyrics were "My Bologna has a first name,